3:12 a.m. Combat Information Center, USS Preble, Gulf of Oman. The in/spy 6 array doesn't ease into it, it detonates. 2 fast-moving contacts rip off the Iranian coast near Bandar Abbas. Afterburners already glowing, climbing hard and fast on a heading that has nothing to do with routine patrol. IFF resolves them in seconds. Iranian Su-35s, Russia's newest export to Tehran, and the compartment snaps from silence to full alert in the space of a single sweep. The tactical action officer is already calling closure numbers before anyone asks, the count climbing past 600 knots combined. Then past 9, the geometry sharpening into something violent with every rotation of the radar. 40 miles out, on the carrier's outer combat air patrol, 2 American F-35Cs are holding a quiet racetrack, and these contacts are burning straight toward them. Consoles light up one after another down the line as the picture updates. And for a few seconds, the only sound in the CIC is the low, urgent murmur of watchstanders calling numbers nobody wanted to hear tonight. Somewhere above the formation, an E-2D Hawkeye holds its own orbit, feeding a wider picture down the link, quietly confirming what the ship's own radar already knows. Above deck, the strike group carries on as if nothing has changed. The carrier's still steaming its assigned track, the escort ships still holding formation, because nothing visible has happened yet. That is the strange discipline of a night like this one. The entire weight of what's unfolding exists only on a handful of screens, in a compartment most of the crew will never see, long before it becomes something the rest of the ship can feel. The Su-35 squadron commander leading the charge believes he's the one dictating this fight. 2 weeks of pushing closer to the strike group's patrol lines, each pass bolder than the last, has convinced him that speed and nerve will finally force the reaction he's been hunting for. Tonight he commits fully, throttles buried, done waiting, certain that whatever is out here tonight is exactly what it was the last 14 nights running. What he has no way of knowing is that the 2 F-35s ahead of him already have his exact heat signature, locked, logged, and waiting from the instant his wheels left the runway at Bandar Abbas. Go back, because this did not begin tonight. For 2 weeks, satellite passes and signals intelligence have tracked the same pattern developing at Bandar Abbas. A squadron of Su-35 Flankers, delivered from Russia only months ago, flying nightly sorties that edge a little closer to the strike group's patrol lines with each repetition. It is textbook pressure testing, the kind of slow escalation designed to see exactly how far a carrier air wing can be pushed before it reacts, and exactly how much nerve the pilots doing the pushing actually have. Tehran's logic is not unreasonable on paper. The Su-35 is a genuinely capable aircraft, thrust vectoring, a powerful radar, more than a match for most fourth-generation fighters it might meet in a straight fight, and its arrival was meant to close a gap Iran has felt keenly for years, ever since sanctions and isolation left its air force flying airframes decades older than anything patrolling the Gulf. For a regime that has spent a generation being outclassed in the sky, the Su-35 represents something close to parity, at least on paper, and command in Tehran is eager to prove it in front of an audience that matters far more than the pilots involved. The stakes reach well past one squadron. Every ally watching the Gulf, every shipping company routing tankers through waters Iran claims as its own, every regional government weighing whether American deterrence still means anything, is paying attention to how this kind of provocation gets answered. Command believes that closing distance repeatedly, night after night, will eventually either provoke an overreaction Iran can broadcast as aggression, or simply wear down the patience of a rotating carrier air wing until someone blinks first. What the plan does not account for is the one detail that makes tonight different from the 14 nights before it. The F-35Cs currently holding the CAP were quietly repositioned 2 days ago, briefed on exactly this pattern building at Bandar Abbas, and are no longer flying a routine racetrack. They are waiting, and they have been waiting specifically for tonight. Commander Reyes, leading the patrol from the cockpit, has read every intelligence summary building up to this moment and expects exactly this. Iran finally closing the gap it spent 2 weeks measuring, betting everything on one aggressive push. She's not wrong about what's coming. She simply has no idea yet how completely this specific attempt is about to collapse, or how much more than 2 aircraft Tehran is about to lose tonight. The Su-35Cs and/APG-81 radar builds a weapons quality track on a target without ever alerting the target it's being watched. It's electronically steered array, leaving no telltale beam for an older threat receiver to catch. Layered underneath it, the distributed aperture system watches in every direction simultaneously, stitching together a 360-degree picture around the jet, so neither Su-35 can approach from an angle the pilot isn't already seeing. None of this requires stealth to be invisible. It only requires stealth to be a problem the Su-35's own radar cannot solve quickly enough to matter. Wrapped around the airframe, the ALQ-239 Barracuda electronic warfare suite listens continuously, cataloging every radar mission and range, and warning the pilot the instant anything paints the jet with real intent. A layer of protection that has nothing to do with maneuvering and everything to do with knowing before the other side does. Overhead, the E2Ds and/APY-9 radar feed the second, wider track down the link, so the F-35 are never relying on a single sensor for a single decision. The AM-120D AMRAAM riding on each F-35's rail is a fire-and-forget weapon, using its own active radar seeker in the terminal phase and a live data link back to the launching aircraft right up until the final seconds, when it stops needing any help at all. Against it, the Su-35 brings genuine performance, thrust vectoring, a powerful N035 Urbisi radar, real maneuverability in a turning fight. What it cannot bring is a clean lock on an aircraft its radar was never designed to see clearly in the first place. Tehran's answer to stealth was supposed to be the IRST-13E, an infrared search and track pod built specifically to find jets that don't show up on radar, hunting heat instead of reflection. It is a legitimate piece of engineering, and against most stealth aircraft, it closes at least part of the gap. But infrared is a short-range game, workable only once a target is already close enough that the fight is nearly decided, and tonight the range never closes far enough for it to matter. By the time an IRST return could theoretically resolve into something usable, the engagement is already over. The fight was never going to be decided by which jet could outturn the other. It was going to be decided by which side saw the other first. And by the time both Su-35s crossed the outer edge of the patrol line, that question has already been answered. The lead Su-35 commits to an intercept on a radar contact that isn't where his scope says it is, chasing a return that lags 2 full seconds behind reality, because his own system simply isn't fast enough to track something this size at this range. He never gets a usable lock. The trailing F-35, patient and radar cold through the entire approach, lets him commit fully before painting him for the 2 seconds the AM-120D needs. The missile leaves the rail, goes active, and closes the gap faster than his threat receiver can finish its warning tone. The fireball is visible from both remaining cockpits and from the Preble's infrared feed 40 miles away. The second Su-35 brakes hard, climbing for altitude in the same desperate vertical maneuver pilots have leaned on for decades against slower threats. Full afterburner, nose punching past 30 degrees. It is the wrong answer against a missile that does not care how much sky separates shooter from target. In the CIC, the tactical action officer calls the second kill the instant the contact disappears off the scope, his voice flat and clipped, purely procedural, because there is still a job to finish. Then it comes apart for Iran completely. Alone now, panicking, and convinced he's already being hunted from every direction. The surviving pilot cycles his fire control radar into a full weapons lock, hoping the threat alone buys him room to run. For 6 full seconds, his radar broadcasts everything about itself. Exact frequency, scan pattern, the entire electronic fingerprint of a system rushes old Tehran on the promise that nobody would ever get a clean read on it. Every millisecond lands on American recorder before he ever pulls a trigger he never actually pulls. He dives for the deck and disengages, the only one who makes it home, carrying nothing back with him but the knowledge that he just handed away the one secret his country most needed to keep. Back aboard the Preble, the Combat Information Center goes utterly silent for exactly 1 heartbeat when the second contact vanishes from scope. Then it breaks loose. Watchstanders are on their feet, consoles humming, the whole compartment rolling into a single wave of relief that needs no order to start and none to spread. Near the plotting table, someone lets out a long, disbelieving exhale, and even the senior chief, arms folded, lets the noise run a few seconds longer than regulation before finally waving the room back down to their stations. By sunrise, Iran has lost two of its newest and most expensive fighters, and the one weapon it needed most: secrecy. State media reports a routine defensive patrol and does not mention the wreckage, the two missing pilots, or the search teams already combing open water for parts of an airplane. That silence does not last. Within hours, gun camera footage and satellite confirmation are circulating through open channels, time-stamped and impossible to deny, directly contradicting the story Tehran spent the morning trying to sell to its own population. What actually happened is worse for Iran than two lost jets. The Su-35 was supposed to be the answer to years of watching American aircraft outclass everything in the Iranian inventory, the one purchase that finally closed the gap. It took less than 15 seconds of panic for that answer to become a fully cataloged threat, sitting in an American mission library, ready to be defeated instantly the next time it's ever flown against a jet paying attention. Two airframes can eventually be replaced. A radar signature, once it's out, is out permanently. And every other operator flying the same jet, in every other country that bought it on the same promise, now inherits a vulnerability they didn't know they had until tonight. The F-35s recover aboard the carrier before full daylight, mission complete, without a scratch between them. In Bandar Abbas, ground crews are quietly picking through what little the sea gives back. And somewhere in a command building, someone is going to have to explain, on the record, how two of the country's best pilots flew directly into a trap they never even knew existed. Moscow has its own accounting to do. The Su-35 was Russia's flagship pitch to every buyer still weighing whether to trust its jets over Western ones. And that pitch just failed its first real test in full view of every government deciding what to fly next. Gulf capitals that spent 2 weeks watching Tehran push closer to American ships every night now have a very specific answer to a question they never had to ask out loud before. What actually happens when that pressure finally gets tested? The question nobody in Tehran wants asked out loud, the one every neighbor watching the region just got answered for free, is what exactly that new squadron was supposed to deter in the first place, if this is what happens the very first time it gets tested for real. Somewhere over the Gulf, the radar screen goes quiet again. The patrol line resumes its normal orbit, and the only trace of what happened is a debrief file nobody outside that CIC will ever read.